The kingdom fell, but the princess escaped with the royal babies. Its cities floated like silver clouds above the planet's surface, their towers reaching high, glinting in the light of Oralis's 3 suns. The people of Oralis were proud, confident in their technology, their culture, and their military might. They had built ships that could travel faster than light, weapons that could pierce the toughest armors, and cities that seemed almost alive with energy. Yet even such power was not enough. The first warning came as a shadow across the sun, a flicker of light that did not belong to the planet's own moons. Scouts reported strange ships, sleek and black, moving with precision. Then came the attacks. The Vailans, a cruel alien race, struck without mercy. Their ships rained fire from the skies, lasers cutting through buildings like glass. Cities that had stood for hundreds of years crumbled in minutes. The people of Oralis ran, screaming and confused, trying to find shelter where none remained. Princess Alara stood atop the walls of the royal palace, her heart pounding. She had trained for this, though she had never thought she would see the day. Her white uniform fluttered in the wind as she watched the Vaelan ships descend. Her father, the king, had led the defense, but even he could not stop the destruction. Alara's mind raced. She was only 20, but she had to be strong, had to think, had to act. The kingdom might fall, but something had to survive. The royal council was gone. Some had been captured, others killed in the early strikes. Only a handful of trusted guards remained. Alara knew what she had to do. The royal babies, twins born only months ago, were the last hope for the continuation of her people. If she could keep them safe, then one day humanity, or at least the human colonies, might rise again. She ran to the nursery, her boots echoing on the marble floors. The babies slept, unaware of the chaos outside, their tiny hands curling in innocence. Alara lifted them carefully, one in each arm, feeling their warmth. A rush of fear surged through her, but she pushed it down. She could not let panic rule her. Not now. The palace alarm screamed, signaling breaches in the outer defenses. Alara's personal guards, fierce and loyal, formed a protective circle around her as they moved through the corridors. Each step was dangerous. Debris from the bombing fell around them, and fires painted the halls with flickering orange light. The scent of smoke and burning metal filled the air. Still, she kept moving, her mind sharp and focused. Finally, they reached the hidden launch bay, a secret kept from everyone except the royal family. The ship there was small, built for speed and stealth rather than firepower. It was not much, but it would be enough. Alara set the babies into their special seats, designed to cradle and protect them even under extreme conditions. She strapped them in carefully, checking every harness twice. She could not afford a mistake. Her guards stood at the perimeter as she powered up the ship. The hum of the engines filled the bay, vibrating through her bones. Outside, the sounds of battle grew louder, the Vaelans searching for the princess. Alara's stomach tightened. Every second mattered. She took a deep breath, remembering the training she had received, the drills she had run 100 times. This was no drill. This was survival. With a final glance back at the burning palace, she activated the launch sequence. The ship lifted off, moving swiftly through the chaos. Fires burned the landscape below, but Alara did not look back. She focused on the stars, on the dark emptiness beyond the atmosphere. She had to escape. She had to survive. The journey through the upper atmosphere was tense. Vaelan scouts were already patrolling the skies, their sensors searching for anything that moved. Alara maneuvered the ship with precision, dipping and weaving through the clouds, using the planet's magnetic storms as cover. Her heart raced with every detection signal. The babies stirred, sensing perhaps the tension, but remained asleep. Alara whispered to them softly, calming herself as much as them. "We will be safe. We will survive," she said, though even she wondered if the words were true. Hours passed as she navigated through space. The palace, the city, the kingdom itself, all gone behind her. She felt the weight of loss pressing down. Orales had been magnificent, but now it was nothing more than ash and echoes. Still, she held on to hope. Humanity had survived worse, she reminded herself. She had seen colonies destroyed, planets lost, and yet humans adapted, survived, and thrived. During the long hours of flight, Alara checked the babies frequently, ensuring they were comfortable and warm. She reviewed her maps and charts, plotting a course to a distant system rumored to have an old human settlement. It was a gamble. There was no guarantee anyone was alive there, no guarantee the planet was habitable. But it was the best hope she had. The Valens were relentless. They would search for her, and she had to stay ahead. She allowed herself a moment to reflect. Humanity was fragile, yet remarkably resilient. She thought of the stories she had been told as a child. Humans outsmarting predators, surviving harsh climates, inventing tools to survive impossible situations. And here she was, alone in the cold void of space, relying on those same qualities, cleverness, courage, and endurance, to keep two tiny lives alive. Suddenly, a blip appeared on the sensors. A Valen scout ship, sleek and deadly, was closing in. Alara's pulse quickened. She had to think fast. The scout was too fast to outrun in a straight line. She adjusted the ship's trajectory, diving into a nearby asteroid field. Rocks and debris spun around her, a chaotic maze through which she weaved with skill honed over years of training. The scout followed, but its sensors were thrown off by the chaotic field. Alara smiled grimly. Humans might not have the raw power of the Valens, but they had ingenuity. The scout disappeared, losing her trail, and Alara allowed herself a small sigh of relief. She knew this was only the beginning. The Valens would not give up. They would keep hunting, relentless in their desire to erase humanity. But she had survived this encounter. She would survive the next, and she would keep the royal babies alive, no matter what it took. Days passed in a tense routine. Alara rationed supplies, maintained the ship, and kept the babies safe. She created games and exercises to keep them engaged, even in their infancy, instilling lessons without their understanding: patience, observation, and trust. She recorded logs of their journey, speaking to them as if they could understand, hoping that one day they would listen and learn from her experience. During the long hours, she reflected on the nature of humanity. Humans were not the strongest species in the galaxy. They did not have the best technology or the most advanced weapons, but they had something the Valens could not understand: creativity, empathy, and the will to survive against all odds. These qualities had allowed humans to colonize countless worlds, survive natural disasters, and thrive even when the odds were against them. Alara held onto that truth like a lifeline. Her journey was not without peril. Micrometeoroids struck the ship's shields, minor but constant reminders of the dangers of space. Navigational errors caused near misses with uncharted debris fields, and always the threat of the Valens loomed. Each day was a test, a battle of wits, and a demonstration of human resilience. As the ship approached the coordinates of the distant human settlement, Alara felt a surge of hope. She had survived the fall of her kingdom, the loss of her family, and the relentless pursuit of the Valens. Now there was a chance, however small, that she could find others, allies who could help her protect the royal babies and continue the legacy of Orales. The planet came into view, a blue-green jewel among the stars, seemingly peaceful and untouched. Alara guided the ship through the atmosphere, careful to avoid detection and the planet's natural hazards. As the landscape unfolded beneath her, she saw forests, rivers, and mountains. It was beautiful, almost unreal after the horrors she had endured. Finally, she landed the ship in a hidden valley, shielded by dense trees and rocky cliffs. The engines powered down and silence enveloped the area. Alara held the babies close, tears of relief mixing with exhaustion. They were safe, at least for now. The kingdom of Orales had fallen, but humanity's hope survived in these tiny lives. She looked at the stars, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. The journey ahead would be long and dangerous. The Valens would not rest, and the royal babies would grow in a universe filled with threats. But Alara was determined. She had survived against impossible odds before. She would survive again, and she would ensure that the next generation of humans, the heirs of Orals, would have a chance to reclaim their place among the stars. In that hidden valley beneath alien skies, the princess made a vow. She would protect the royal babies with her life. She would teach them the ways of humanity, the strength that came not from power, but from courage, cleverness, and compassion. And one day, when the time was right, they would rise, not just to reclaim a kingdom, but to show the galaxy the true spirit of humanity. The kingdom of Orals had fallen. But its heart, its hope, and its future lived on in the princess and the royal baby she carried. The hidden valley was quiet, but the silence was not peace. Princess Alara knew that danger followed them like a shadow. The Valens were relentless. Every passing moment without alertness could mean capture or death. She kept the royal babies close, checking their harnesses and making sure the small ship's shields were functioning. For a moment she allowed herself to breathe, knowing that the valley with its thick forests and rocky cliffs offered some protection. But rest could not last. She had to move, plan, and survive. Alara began examining the planet from her ship's sensors. The readings suggested that the valley was isolated enough to remain hidden from typical patrol routes, yet there were signs of water sources, food, and shelter. This could be a place to rest, to regain strength, but her instincts told her to keep moving. The Valens were cunning, and if they detected the ship, it would not matter how hidden the valley was. She needed a long-term plan, a way to protect the babies until they were old enough to defend themselves, and until humanity could rise again. During the first night, Alara made a small camp outside the ship. She set up protective barriers using local materials and activated small drones to scout the surrounding forest. The babies slept peacefully in their seats, their tiny chests rising and falling with perfect calm. Seeing them safe gave her hope, but also deepened her fear. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders. Every decision she made now could mean life or death for the future of humanity. As dawn broke over the alien sky, Alara studied her maps. The coordinates she had plotted led to an old human colony that had been abandoned decades ago. The settlement might be ruined, but she hoped there would be supplies, food, water, tools, or even data that could help her navigate the galaxy. Her plan was risky, but staying in the valley forever was impossible. Humans were explorers, survivors. They adapted, even when the odds seemed impossible. She had to keep moving. The journey through the dense forests and rocky hills was slow and cautious. Every sound made her flinch. Every movement in the trees made her hand tighten on her weapon. The babies were strapped to her back in specially designed carriers, their small heads resting against her shoulder. Despite the danger, she found moments to speak to them softly, telling them stories of Orals, of human courage and determination. Even though they could not understand, her voice carried warmth and hope, lessons of resilience that they would carry in their hearts when the time came. On the third day, a warning alarm rang from her ship. Alara ran back, carrying the babies carefully, and saw a Valen scout ship entering the planet's atmosphere. Her pulse quickened. The aliens had tracked her. She had to think fast. Using the thick forest as cover, she led the babies and her small band of guards through a series of winding valleys and narrow cliffs. The scout ship followed, firing occasional warning shots that burned trees and rock. Alara remembered the drills she had run countless times in the palace, the art of using the terrain to one's advantage. Humans were small, weaker than the Valens, but smart. She set traps using rocks and vines, creating false trails to mislead the alien sensors. The scout ship, too large to navigate the narrow valleys, struggled to follow. She smiled grimly. Once again, Ingenuity gave humans an edge where raw power could not. Hours later, the scout lost them, and Alara allowed herself a moment to rest. The babies were calm, their trust in her unspoken but palpable. She knew that one day they would grow to inherit more than just a kingdom. They would inherit the responsibility of leading a species across the stars. Every small action she took now was a lesson in survival, strategy, and courage. Humans did not give up easily. They adapted, they endured, and she would teach that to her children. When night fell again, Alara set up a temporary shelter near a small river. Water was essential, and food from the forest was scarce but enough to sustain them. She took turns with her guards, keeping watch through the night. Even with the quiet moments, tension never fully left her. Every rustle of leaves, every distant sound of animals, reminded her that the universe was dangerous, and the Valens could strike at any time. The days that followed were a mix of careful travel and learning. Alara trained herself to navigate without relying on her ship's advanced systems, teaching herself to read the stars, the terrain, and even alien signals. She allowed the babies to crawl and explore under her watchful eyes, ensuring that even in their infancy, they experienced curiosity and learning. She spoke to them constantly, teaching them simple ideas about observation, patience, and caution. Humans thrived because they were curious, inventive, and adaptable. These qualities could not be stolen, and she would make sure the children carried them forever. One morning, sensors picked up unusual activity in the area. A small group of Valan scouts had landed nearby. Alara knew they could not fight them head-on. Her people were too few. Instead, she used deception and traps, creating illusions of a larger force. She lured the scouts into narrow ravines, where the rocks and terrain worked against the aliens' larger bodies. One by one, the Valens were forced to retreat or be caught in makeshift snares. Humans did not rely on brute force alone, they relied on brains. Alara reminded herself of that with every victory. After the encounter, she pressed forward toward the coordinates of the old human settlement. The journey was long and dangerous, but the closer she got, the more hope she felt. Signs of human habitation began to appear: abandoned structures, old landing pads, and remnants of past colonists. The settlement had been destroyed by natural disasters and neglect, but many of the buildings were still standing, offering shelter and resources. Alara allowed herself a small smile. Humanity's past efforts had left behind tools, knowledge, and structures that could still aid the living. Inside the settlement, she found caches of food, medical supplies, and even data logs from the original colonists. It was not much, but it was enough to sustain them for weeks. More importantly, she discovered old archives containing maps of nearby star systems, hidden colonies, and potential allies. The Valans would not have expected humans to survive here, and Alara intended to use that advantage. The babies were thriving in the settlement, their small hands exploring the floors and furniture. Alara watched them with a mixture of relief and pride. These tiny beings represented more than life. They were symbols of hope, resilience, and the future of humanity. Every smile, every movement reminded her that survival was worth the struggle. She whispered lessons to them even in the quiet hours of the night, teaching them the essence of human courage, intelligence, and compassion. Days passed, and Alara worked to reinforce the settlement. She repaired structures, set up surveillance systems using scavenged technology, and trained her guards in defensive tactics. They were preparing for the inevitable. The Valens would not abandon their pursuit. She instructed her team on asymmetric warfare, using speed, agility, and cleverness to compensate for their smaller numbers. The humans here would have to survive not just physically, but mentally, using every ounce of wit and courage they possessed. The first encounter with a Valen strike team came on a foggy morning. The scouts moved silently, confident in their numbers. Alara had anticipated this. She had set traps and ambush points throughout the settlement. Using hidden passages and high ground, her team struck strategically, disabling the aliens' equipment and driving them back. Each success reinforced a truth she had carried since the fall of Orcs. Humans were never powerless when they thought creatively, acted with courage, and worked together. Over the weeks, the settlement became a haven. It was isolated, well hidden, and defended by clever traps and technology repurposed by human ingenuity. Alara allowed herself moments of rest, but she never let her guard down completely. The babies grew stronger, learning from the environment, exploring safely under her eyes, and becoming more aware of their surroundings. She spoke to them constantly, telling them about courage, patience, and hope. They were too small to understand words, but her tone, warmth, and determination were lessons they absorbed nonetheless. Alara also took the time to document everything. She recorded logs of the Valen attacks, survival techniques, and her strategies for navigating hostile space. This information would serve as a guide not just for the babies, but for any humans who might survive elsewhere. Humanity had always thrived by sharing knowledge, learning from mistakes, and building on past experiences. She was ensuring that even if she fell, the lessons of survival would remain. One evening, while watching the twin suns dip below the horizon, Alara reflected on everything that had happened. The kingdom of Orcs was gone, yet the essence of its people endured. Humans had been pushed to the brink before, and each time they had adapted, survived, and thrived. She knew that the road ahead would be long and filled with dangers, but hope was alive in the most unexpected places, in the babies she carried, in the survivors she protected, and in the resilience of humanity itself. Her thoughts were interrupted by the faint hum of a distant ship. The Valens had returned, more determined than ever. Alara's pulse quickened, but she smiled faintly. This was not the end. Every encounter, every challenge, was an opportunity to demonstrate what humanity could do. They might be fewer, smaller, and less powerful than their enemies, but humans were clever, brave, and relentless. She gathered her team, checked the babies, and prepared to defend the settlement once again. The Valens would find no easy prey here. Humans survived against impossible odds. They adapted, they learned, they endured. And this small group, led by a determined princess and carrying the hope of the future, was about to show that spirit in full force. The kingdom of Orcs had fallen, but its heart continued to beat in the hidden valleys of a distant planet. And as long as Alara and the royal baby survived, the story of humanity was far from over. The hidden settlement was quiet for a time, but Princess Alara knew that silence was only temporary. The Valens would not forget. They were patient hunters, relentless and cunning. She had seen what they could do to a planet, to cities, to entire civilizations. She could not allow the same fate to befall the small group that now depended on her. The royal babies, her guards, and the few human survivors who had found refuge there. The settlement itself was a relic from early human colonization. Its structures were old, made from materials strong enough to endure decades of neglect, yet many of its systems had survived. Solar panels still collected energy, water filtration units worked, and even some automated defenses could be restored. Alara worked tirelessly, repairing broken panels, reprogramming old drones, and making the settlement a place where humans could not just survive, but prepare. She trained her team in every possible skill they might need. Combat training was essential, but so were stealth, strategy, and resourcefulness. They practiced moving silently through forests, setting traps, and using terrain to their advantage. Humans were not as physically strong as the Valens, but they had intelligence, creativity, and determination. Alara emphasized that in every lesson, survival depended on brains as much as strength. Meanwhile, she spent as much time as possible with the royal babies. Though they were still infants, she knew they were the future. Every small lesson mattered, every story, every word of encouragement. She spoke to them about courage, about hope, about the spirit of humanity that could never be destroyed. Even in their infancy, they learned through observation, through the tone of her voice, and the way she faced danger without fear. One day, while scouting the perimeter, one of her guards discovered signs of recent Valan activity nearby. Alara studied the tracks carefully. The aliens had passed through, perhaps scouting the planet, testing defenses. She realized that the Valans were aware of the settlement's existence. They had underestimated human ingenuity before, but now they might come prepared. Alara convened her team. She outlined a defensive plan using the settlement's natural advantages. Narrow valleys would funnel the enemy, traps would weaken them, and guerrilla tactics would give humans an edge despite their smaller numbers. Every detail mattered. Humans had survived countless disasters on Earth by thinking creatively and adapting. They would do the same here. The days grew tense. The Valans were intelligent, adapting to human tactics, and Alara had to anticipate every move. She used the settlement's drones to scout, creating false signals and decoys. She moved supplies through hidden tunnels so that if the aliens attacked, humans could always retreat and regroup. The babies remained safely within the central shelter, protected by layers of defenses and human ingenuity. One evening, while the sun set behind distant cliffs, Alara looked at the twins. They were playing with small devices she had salvaged, their tiny hands exploring buttons and levers. She smiled softly. These small beings carried the future of humanity within them. The kingdom of Orcs was gone, but its spirit lived on in these children. She whispered to them gently, "You are strong and you will survive. One day you will lead and you will show the galaxy what humans can do." The Valans did not wait long. A fleet of small ships descended, searching the valley with precision. Alara had anticipated this moment. She and her team had prepared traps, hidden snipers, and automated defenses. As the aliens entered the valley, they triggered concealed devices that blocked their sensors and confused their navigation. The humans struck strategically, disabling key ships and forcing the others to retreat. Alara watched from a high ridge, guiding her team with calm authority. Humans were not just surviving, they were adapting and fighting back. After the battle, she reinforced the settlement further. Every encounter taught new lessons, every threat strengthened her resolve. She trained her guards to anticipate alien strategies, to use misdirection, and to rely on clever tactics instead of sheer power. Humanity had always been underestimated by stronger enemies, and that misjudgment was now their greatest advantage. The babies grew quickly in this environment. They were taught not only to survive, but to think, observe, and adapt. Alara showed them how to read patterns, recognize danger, and respond with calm precision. Even as infants, they learned the importance of patience and awareness. She knew that one day they would inherit not just a kingdom, but the responsibility of leading humans across the galaxy. Every lesson she gave was a seed for the future. Supplies were always a concern. Alara organized teams to explore the surrounding forests and mountains, looking for food, water, and materials. Each trip was dangerous, but human ingenuity turned even ordinary objects into tools and weapons. They crafted communication devices, alarm systems, and traps from scrap materials. The Valans had superior technology, but humans had creativity and determination, the qualities that had allowed them to survive on countless worlds before. Alara also explored the planet for signs of other survivors. She hoped to find remnants of human colonies that had escaped the Valans. Every encounter with survivors was an opportunity to share knowledge, strengthen the group, and expand their numbers. Humans thrived when they worked together, and Alara knew that unity was the key to enduring the coming storm. One afternoon, while surveying a distant ridge, Alara spotted movement. At first, she thought it was wildlife, but then she saw the unmistakable glint of veil and armor. Scouts had found the settlement again. She quickly returned, signaling her team to prepare. The Veilens moved cautiously, but their numbers were small. Alara decided to teach them a lesson in human ingenuity. Using the terrain, she lured the scouts into narrow ravines and dense forests. Hidden tripwires, traps, and improvised explosives slowed the aliens and caused confusion. The humans struck quickly and decisively, disabling several Veilens before they could escape. The lesson was clear. Humans might be smaller and less powerful, but they could outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast their enemies. After the encounter, Alara spent time repairing and reinforcing the settlement's defenses. She taught her guards new strategies, combining lessons learned from the recent battle with previous experiences. Humans thrived under pressure because they learned quickly and adapted faster than their enemies. Every improvement made the settlement stronger, safer, and more resilient. The royal babies continued to grow, their minds absorbing lessons even as they played. Alara encouraged exploration within safe areas, allowing them to discover simple mechanisms and learn problem-solving skills. The twins were curious, intelligent, and resilient, just as humans had always been. She smiled as they examined the small devices she had salvaged, already showing signs of understanding patterns and cause-and-effect relationships. Alara also recorded logs of her experiences. She documented strategies, traps, and observations about the Veilens. These records would serve as guides for the future, a testament to human ingenuity and determination. Even if she did not survive, the knowledge she preserved would ensure that humanity could continue to thrive. Time passed, and the settlement became a hub of activity. Humans worked together, strengthening their defenses, improving their skills, and learning from each encounter. The babies were central to everything, symbols of hope, motivation, and the future of humanity. Every person in the settlement understood that protecting them was not just a duty, but a responsibility to the species itself. One morning, while exploring the forest near the settlement, Alara discovered a cave system. Its entrance was hidden by foliage and rocks, providing a natural fortress. She decided to use the caves as a secondary base, a safe retreat if the Veilens attacked in force. The caves could be fortified, traps could be set, and observation points could be established. This hidden sanctuary would allow the humans to survive even under direct assault. The first major test of the sanctuary came sooner than expected. A small Veilens strike team had located the settlement and attempted a direct attack. Alara's team retreated to the caves, using pre-planned escape routes and ambush points. The humans fought with precision, striking only when the advantage was theirs. Every move was calculated, every action deliberate. The Veilens were strong, but humans were clever, adaptive, and unrelenting. The battle lasted for hours. Explosions echoed through the valley and caves, yet the humans held their ground. Alara coordinated attacks, ensuring the safety of the babies and reinforcing the defenders. By nightfall, the Veilens had retreated. The humans had won, not through brute force but through strategy, intelligence, and unity. Alara surveyed the aftermath. The settlement was intact, the caves fortified, and the babies safe. The humans had proven that even in the face of superior technology and numbers, ingenuity and courage could prevail. This victory was small, but it was significant. Humanity had survived another test, and the lessons learned would strengthen them for the challenges ahead. In the quiet hours after the battle, Alara spoke to the babies. She told them stories of courage, of humans who had faced impossible odds and survived. She emphasized the qualities that had kept them alive: intelligence, patience, creativity, and the willingness to act even when the future seemed uncertain. The twins listened, their small eyes wide, absorbing the warmth and determination in her voice. The hidden sanctuary became a place of hope. Humans worked, trained, and lived with purpose. They were not merely surviving, they were preparing for the future, ready to face the Vaillands when the time was right. And the royal babies, nurtured, protected, and taught by Alara, would grow to embody the spirit of humanity itself, clever, brave, and unyielding. Alara knew that the road ahead would be long and dangerous. The Vaillands would not rest, and the universe held countless threats. Yet she also knew that humans had survived worse, that their ingenuity and courage were unparalleled, and that even in the darkest times, hope could shine through. And so, beneath the alien skies, in a hidden sanctuary built by survivors, the princess and her people prepared for the battles to come. The kingdom of Orales was gone, but its spirit, and the future of humanity, was alive and thriving in the hidden valley. The hidden sanctuary had grown strong. Days of preparation, training, and careful planning had shaped the small group of humans into a capable force. Princess Alara stood on a ridge overlooking the valley, the royal babies resting safely in the shelter below. Their future, and perhaps the future of humanity, depended on what they did next. The Vaillands would not stop until they had eliminated every trace of resistance. But Alara had a plan, one that relied not on brute strength, but on human ingenuity, courage, and the will to survive. Alara gathered her team in the central hall of the settlement. They had spent months preparing, reinforcing the sanctuary, learning the terrain, and training themselves and the babies. Every encounter with the Vaillands had been a lesson, and now those lessons would be put to use. She spoke with calm authority, outlining a daring strategy to strike at the Vaillands' forward base on a nearby planet. It was risky, but if successful, it could secure their safety and prove that humans were not to be underestimated. Her guards nodded in agreement. They trusted her completely, knowing that she had survived impossible odds before. The twins, too young to understand the plan, sat nearby, their small hands clutching simple toys that Alara had made from salvaged materials. Every action she took was to ensure their survival, to ensure that the next generation of humans would live and thrive. The journey to the Vailland base was treacherous. The humans navigated through asteroid fields, magnetic storms, and regions of space teeming with alien patrols. Every maneuver required precision and clever thinking. Alara guided the ships with skill, using the natural hazards of space as cover. Her team adapted quickly to each new challenge, their trust in her growing with every successful maneuver. As they approached the enemy planet, the Vaillands detected them. Scout ships moved to intercept, their weapons ready, but Alara had anticipated this. Using a combination of stealth, decoys, and sudden maneuvers, the human fleet slipped past the patrols, reaching orbit undetected. The Vaillands were powerful, but humans had something they could not replicate: creativity and unpredictability. Once in orbit, Alara studied the base. It was heavily fortified, with advanced defenses and patrolling drones. A direct assault would be suicidal. Instead, she devised a plan to disable key systems first. Using small, nimble ships, her team infiltrated the base, planting devices to disrupt communications and navigation. The humans moved with precision, exploiting the Vaillands' overconfidence. Every obstacle was met with ingenuity, every challenge overcome by quick thinking and courage. Inside the base, the humans worked like shadows, avoiding detection while completing their objectives. The royal babies remained safe on the hidden planet, protected by automated systems and loyal guards. Alara had ensured multiple layers of defense, knowing that the success of the mission depended on their survival. The twins were the heart of this plan, the reason humanity still had hope. As the devices activated, alarms rang across the Vailland base. Their systems faltered, communication lines went dark, and patrols became disoriented. Alara's team seized the opportunity, striking swiftly at key positions. The humans fought with precision and coordination, using tactics that the Vailans could not anticipate. Though outnumbered, they leveraged intelligence, speed, and adaptability to gain the upper hand. Back on the hidden planet, the babies stirred, sensing the excitement in the air. Alara's team communicated with the sanctuary through encrypted channels, ensuring that the twins and other humans remained safe. Every success of the strike team reinforced the belief that humans could overcome even the most formidable enemies. The Vailans had thought of humans as weak and predictable, but they were wrong. The battle intensified as the Vailans tried to regain control. Their forces were powerful, but humans had prepared. Hidden drones, traps, and clever use of terrain allowed the smaller human team to inflict maximum damage while minimizing risk. Every encounter highlighted the core strength of humanity, the ability to adapt, innovate, and persist against overwhelming odds. Alara coordinated her team with calm determination. Every move was calculated, every decision deliberate. They disabled power systems, disrupted communication networks, and targeted supply lines. The Vailans, despite their superior technology, were forced to retreat or face complete destruction. The humans had shown that brains and courage could triumph where brute strength alone might fail. Meanwhile, the royal babies, unaware of the full scale of the battle, became symbols of hope for the entire human force. Guards watched over them carefully, ensuring they were safe while the adults fought. Every smile, every movement reminded the humans why they fought, not for revenge, but for survival, for the future, for the continuation of their species. After hours of strategic strikes, the Vaelan base was crippled. Ships were destroyed or disabled, patrols scattered, and communication lines severed. The humans had achieved the impossible. They had struck a decisive blow against a superior force. Alara allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction, knowing that their survival was no longer just about escape. It was about reclaiming agency in a universe that had sought to erase them. The team returned to the hidden sanctuary, weary but victorious. The royal babies were safe, the humans had proven their resilience, and hope burned brighter than ever. Alara knew this was only the beginning. The Vailans would return, but humans had learned to adapt, to innovate, and to fight with intelligence and unity. They were not helpless prey. They were survivors, fighters, and thinkers. In the following weeks, the settlement became a hub of rebuilding and training. Humans repaired damaged ships, strengthened defenses, and shared knowledge. The royal babies grew quickly, their curiosity and intelligence evident even in infancy. Alara continued teaching them the values that had ensured humanity's survival: observation, patience, creativity, and courage. She spoke to them about hope, about perseverance, and about the responsibility they would one day inherit. Alara also reached out to other hidden human colonies, using the crippled Vaelan systems to communicate securely. She found pockets of survivors, some struggling, others thriving in isolation. She offered guidance, shared strategies, and coordinated efforts. Humanity was scattered but not broken. With leadership, planning, and determination, they could rebuild, adapt, and survive together. The Vailans, recovering from the strike, realized that humans were no longer predictable prey. Their arrogance had blinded them, and now they faced an enemy that thought, adapted, and fought back with cunning. Alara knew that the next encounters would be dangerous, but she also knew that humans thrived under pressure. Every threat was an opportunity to learn, adapt, and grow stronger. Months passed, and the sanctuary flourished. Humans worked together, combining skills, knowledge, and ingenuity. The royal babies grew under careful guidance, learning not just survival skills, but the principles of leadership, strategy, and compassion. They were more than heirs. They were symbols of the enduring spirit of humanity, proof that even when kingdoms fall, the essence of people survives. Alara often watched the twins play, their laughter echoing through the valley. She remembered the fall of Orcs, the fires, the chaos, and the loss. Yet now there was life, hope, and determination. Humanity had endured, and the next generation would continue that legacy. She whispered to the babies, "You carry the future. You carry the strength of every human who came before you. One day you will lead, and you will show the galaxy what humans are truly capable of." The Valens launched another attack, this time larger and more coordinated. But Alara and her team were ready. Using knowledge gained from the previous encounter, they anticipated enemy movements, set ambushes, and exploited weaknesses. The humans fought with intelligence and courage, striking decisively at critical targets. The Valens, despite their superior numbers and technology, could not overcome the combination of human ingenuity, adaptability, and determination. After the battle, the humans celebrated quietly. Victory was not just survival, it was proof of their resilience. The royal babies remained safe, their presence a constant reminder of why they fought. Every success strengthened their spirit, their unity, and their belief that humanity could overcome even the most formidable challenges. Alara knew that rebuilding would take time. The universe was vast, filled with dangers, and the Valens were persistent. But humans had survived worse, and they would continue to thrive. The sanctuary became a symbol of hope for scattered colonies, a beacon that reminded every survivor that they were not alone, that cleverness, courage, and unity could defy even the greatest threats. In the end, Princess Alara looked at the stars, the royal babies playing at her feet. The kingdom of Orcs had fallen, but its spirit endured. Humanity had survived, and the next generation, the babies, would carry forward the legacy of courage, ingenuity, and resilience. The story of survival, of hope, and of triumph against impossible odds would continue, shining as a testament to what it meant to be human. The kingdom may have fallen, but humanity had risen. And with the royal babies as living symbols of the future, the galaxy would one day witness the strength, intelligence, and unyielding spirit of the human race. The kingdom fell, but the princess escaped with the royal babies.